Effects of poverty on society. The effects of poverty on society involve both economic, social, and political impacts. Poverty leads to increases in crime, rates of violence and abuse, discrimination, higher rates of infant mortality, poor nutrition, and lack of health care. While these factors create a vicious cycle causing poverty to persist across generations, they also explain the unique development of neighborhoods that are considered ghettos. Effects of poverty on men in a society. The effects of poverty on men in society. Being poor is very stressful and damaging to one's mental health. It also causes a great deal of stress among family members. Studies show that these stressful situations can affect a man physically and mentally, making him more susceptible to developing diseases such as cancer, heart disease, diabetes mellitus, and hypertension. Another condition known as the broken heart syndrome describes the physical symptoms that occur from being under constant stress. There are many ways to help with this situation. I strongly believe there are also many things that could be done to make the process easier for both the man and family members. Effects of poverty on women in a society. The effects of poverty on women in society are often the most profound and far-reaching because the lack of adequate resources available to the poor often results in a lack of educational opportunities and therefore reduced opportunities for advancement beyond low-paid jobs. Less developed nations with high levels of poverty have high levels of HIV/AIDS, diseases that kill both men and women. There is also an increased rate of gender-based violence against women. These factors create a power imbalance dangerously skewed toward men with a higher socio-economic status within society. Effects of poverty on children in a society. Poverty has many effects on the children in society. Some of these effects are there are higher rates of death, disease, and malnutrition. Life for poor children is uncertain, there is no job security, and children may not have access to education. If a child does manage to go to school, they may underachieve as they lack motivation or don't know what is expected of them. How does poverty affect the development of children? Within the past decades, research has been conducted to reveal the many effects that poverty has on children. After specifically researching the psychological and physical aspects of children living in impoverished societies, trends were discovered that would greatly influence their overall well-being as they grow into adulthood. Effects of poverty on adults in a society. The effects of poverty on adults in society are not only emotionally and physically damaging but also have devastating effects on a nation's economy and growth. A social environment without the proper resources is often characterized by low levels of literacy, poor infrastructure, and lack of quality education, clean water, and effective sewage disposal. Poverty and unemployment are considered to be the primary cause for this continuation cycle. Those who are categorized as being below the poverty line are more likely to remain that way. Effects of poverty on society. Effects of poverty on animals in a society. Poverty is a common phenomenon in developing countries, and it also has adverse effects on animals in society. Effects of poverty on the behavior of animals in Indonesia served as business partners to address problems created by owners that were not able to care for them adequately. It was hypothesized that the social status of household owners would influence the feeding pattern, health condition, and behavior of their pets. A total of 1,174 pet dogs and cats from East Belitung District, Bangka Island Province, Indonesia, were interviewed with questionnaires distributed to all households with pets in the villages. 91% of pet owners reported that they had enough time to care for their pets, cats, 84% versus dogs, 91%, p. 0.01. The ratio of owners taking their animals for medical treatment to veterinarians in the 13 villages was 18/99 dogs and 16/100 cats, p. 0.05. 72%, 1,010/1,174, of pet houses were found to live without waste management outside, p. 0.05. Effects of poverty on resources in a society. The effects of poverty on resources in a society can be striking. Poverty is characterized by a lack of economic, political, and social capital, which directly impacts families and the way they live. Most people have a difficult time living on a low income, let alone raising a family. It is hard to maintain a standard of living when you only have enough money to pay the rent and eat food. Living in poverty not only leads to problems with financial resources but also many other troubles such as health, community, and school. Poverty is a very serious issue that can cause others to be negatively impacted by it. Effects of poverty on crime in a society. Poverty, defined as not having enough money to buy all your basic needs and wants, leads to increased crime rates in all societies. Poverty is a social structure, not a biological or national phenomenon. Increased poverty levels may be a contributor to increased crime rates. As members of society become poorer and lack the ability to fulfill their basic needs, they may turn to crime as a source of income. A recent study on poverty points to a strong correlation between crime rates and the effects that poverty has on society. Previous studies have discussed this effect in a general sense but had few hard numbers to back them up. Professor Tankersley spent years collecting these numbers and analyzing their sources. The study breaks down the number of crimes, victims, and perpetrators by both race and poverty level of the community. Results show that economic status within a community is a key factor tied to the level of crime. In order to save our planet for future generations, we need to reduce the effects of poverty on society. Effects of poverty on violence in a society. Violence is used by the poor as a way out of poverty. Violence leads to further poverty and further violence as poverty breeds violence and vice versa. Often, it creates feelings of shame, embarrassment, and fear that can affect one's self-concept and lead to behaviors that keep the cycle alive. The effects of poverty on society are serious and are felt by individuals, communities, and nations as a whole. Poverty leads to violence in many ways, but it also affects violence indirectly through behaviors such as drug abuse and family disintegration. Effects of poverty on society are important to know so that we can control them. Effects of poverty on unemployment in a society. The economic problems and social consequences of poverty are a huge challenge to tackle, affecting families faced with unemployment, sickness, or domestic violence. The Economic Impact of Poverty Report, 2018, found that over 2.6 million individuals or 71% of the people living below the poverty line were children and youths under the age of 29. In 2018, there were more than 11 million people across Egypt facing financial hardship, with 37% of them in rural areas. Effects of poverty on the economy in a society. Poverty, a lack of material possessions or money, is one of the biggest problems people face in modern society, and it can have a number of effects on the economy in any country. These effects are both direct and indirect, and they can be positive or negative, depending on how they manifest themselves in different areas of society. For example, the effect that marketable skills shortages can have on an economy may lead to higher unemployment, while lower crime rates can ultimately save governments a large amount of money.